Ronda Rousey was once the most dominant fighter on the planet. She was the first woman signed to the UFC, the face of an entire movement, and a champion who finished almost every opponent in the first round. But the same belief that made her unstoppable also made her fragile. The confidence that built her empire became the arrogance that brought it down. To some, she's a trailblazer who changed everything. To others, she's a cautionary tale about ego, hype, and the refusal to evolve. This is the story of how the most dominant champion in the women's game became one of its most dramatic downfalls. Ronda Rousey's toughness wasn't built under bright lights or in a packed arena. It came from a childhood marked by tragedy and pressure. Her father took his own life when she was 8 years old, and her mother, a world judo champion, channeled that loss into discipline. Training wasn't optional. She was thrown, choked, and pushed past her limits until toughness became instinct. Rousey learned early that pain was something to push through, not to avoid. That mindset carried her to the 2008 Olympics, where she became the first American woman to win a medal in judo. It should have been the start of something bigger, but instead, it felt like an ending. She was 21, broke, and directionless. Years of focus had led to a moment that vanished overnight. The grind that had once defined her life suddenly had no purpose. But after seeing Gina Carano fight on TV, she realized that there was a new type of fight to get involved in. Within months, Rousey was training in mixed martial arts gyms around Los Angeles, blending judo with aggression and intensity. She had nothing to lose, and that made her dangerous. The same drive that once carried her to the Olympics was back, and it was about to take over the sport. Her debut in Strikeforce wasn't just impressive, it was violent, efficient, and immediate. In her first few fights, opponents barely had time to react before they were on the mat, trapped in an armbar they couldn't escape. Against Sarah D'Alelio, she won in 25 seconds. Against Julia Budd, it took 39. Every fight ended the same way. First round, same submission, same devastation. By early 2012, she was already fighting for the Strikeforce Bantamweight Championship against Miesha Tate. Tate was the established name, the reigning champion, and one of the few women with both wrestling and grappling credentials. But it didn't matter. Rousey threw her to the mat, cranked the arm, and won by submission in the first round. Overnight, she went from prospect to phenomenon. When the UFC absorbed Strikeforce later that year, Rousey was already its reigning champion. There was no tournament or qualifying fight. Dana White simply carried her status over and made her the first woman in UFC history to hold a championship. Her first UFC fight against Liz Carmouche made history. It was the main event of the first women's bout in company history. Carmouche nearly shocked the world with an early choke attempt, but Rousey shook her off, took her down, and finished with the same move that had defined her entire rise. Another first-round armbar, another record broken. In less than 2 years, Ronda Rousey had gone from an Olympic judoka sleeping in her car to the face of an entire sport. Every opponent was crushed in minutes, every fight sold as an event, and every victory looked effortless. For the UFC, she wasn't just a new champion. She was the reason the women's division existed at all. After the Carmouche fight, Rousey's reign only grew more violent. Her first title defense came against Sarah McMahon, an Olympic silver medalist in wrestling. Rousey dropped her with a knee to the body in 66 seconds. Next came Alexis Davis, 16 seconds, a judo throw straight into a barrage of punches that ended before the crowd had even settled. Then, Kat Zingano, who was undefeated and supposed to be her toughest test. Rousey flipped her over, locked the arm, and finished in 14 seconds, the fastest title fight in UFC history. By the time she knocked out Bet Correa in Brazil, she wasn't just a champion anymore. She was a pop culture icon. The media called her the female Mike Tyson. Dana White, Joe Rogan, and her own coach Edmond Tarverdian spoke about her like she was rewriting the laws of combat. They said her striking was evolving faster than anyone had ever seen, that she could beat professional boxers, even Floyd Mayweather. Rousey believed them. She started to see herself not as a judo specialist, but as the most complete fighter alive. Her gym reinforced that belief. Pad sessions looked sharp on camera, quick hands, loud impacts, but underneath it, the technique was hollow. The illusion was working though. She was filming movies, walking red carpets, gracing magazine covers, and selling pay-per-views at a rate no one thought possible for a female fighter. It was the peak of her fame and the start of her downfall. The higher she climbed, the less she listened. And soon, she would run into someone who didn't buy the myth. When Holm was announced as her next opponent, Rousey treated it like a formality. Holm was quiet and respectful, a multiple-time boxing world champion known for patience and precision. But Rousey mocked her publicly, calling her too nice and promising to beat her everywhere the fight could go. The weigh-in the night before the fight turned ugly. Rousey stormed forward, screaming in Holm's face, claiming afterward that Holm had touched her first. It wasn't confidence anymore. It was pure hostility. For the first time in her career, the crowd didn't see a champion defending her crown. They saw a superstar drunk on her own hype. UFC 193 took place in Melbourne, inside a packed stadium of more than 56,000 people. Rousey walked in as the unbeatable queen, the betting favorite, the face of the sport. Holm was treated like an afterthought. When the fight began, Rousey charged forward with the same reckless aggression that had crushed lesser opponents. But Holm wasn't intimidated. She circled, countered, and picked her apart with clean left hands. Rousey grew desperate, swinging wildly and missing. In the second round, Holm landed a perfectly timed head kick that dropped her instantly. The stadium went silent. The myth died before she hit the canvas. For 13 months after that loss, Rousey vanished. No interviews, no statements, no acknowledgement of defeat. She hid from cameras, avoided the media, and refused to discuss what had happened. When she finally appeared on Ellen, she admitted to suicidal thoughts in the immediate aftermath of the fight, saying she didn't know who she was if she wasn't champion. Her comeback came at the end of 2016 at UFC 207 against the new champion Amanda Nunes. It was billed as redemption, but everything about it felt hollow. For 13 months, Rousey had stayed silent. No interviews or press conferences had been given. The UFC built the entire promotion around her without her ever speaking, running video packages while she refused every media request. The company even broke its own rules to protect her from reporters, a privilege no other fighter had ever received. Behind the silence, nothing had changed. She was still training under Edmond Tarverdian, the same coach who'd convinced her she was an elite striker. Analysts and fighters saw what was coming. The division had evolved in her absence, and Nunes wasn't just another brawler. She was a cold, technical finisher with knockout power and world-class jiu-jitsu. Fight week felt uneasy. Rousey walked past cameras without a word. Nunes smiled, calm and confident, telling anyone who asked that Ronda wasn't ready. When the octagon door closed, she was proven right immediately. Nunes met her in the center and began unloading clean right hands that landed at will. Rousey didn't move her head, didn't block, didn't adapt. Within seconds, the aura was gone. 48 seconds later, the referee stepped in, ending it before the beating could get worse. And that was the end of it. December 30th, 2016 marked the end of her career in the sport. Since leaving MMA, Ronda Rousey has carried the same attitude that once fueled her downfall. She still calls herself the greatest of all time, but her confidence has hardened into delusion. Years after losing to Holm and Amanda Nunes, she continues to make excuses, blaming a bad mouthguard, a concussion from falling down stairs, and a poor weight cut. She's even said that being defeated is a choice, as if acknowledging loss would undo who she is. Her bitterness toward fans and the media has only deepened. She's accused reporters of vilifying her, claimed she'd be booed if she ever walked into a UFC arena again, and dismissed Joe Rogan, once her biggest supporter, as a fan with an audience. The perception isn't that she lost twice, but that she never learned how to lose. Rousey's collapse wasn't a mystery. It wasn't bad luck or one unlucky head kick. It was the natural consequence of everything that had made her unstoppable in the first place. Her rise was built on conviction, aggression, and control. Her downfall came when those same traits turned into arrogance, denial, and isolation. Psychologically, she was trapped by her own myth. Her identity and her invincibility had become the same thing. The night Holm beat her, it wasn't just a sporting loss, it was ego death. When your entire sense of self is built on dominance, there's nowhere to go when it disappears. Athletically, her downfall was written into her style. Rousey was never a complete mixed martial artist. She was a judo master with one devastating weapon, the armbar, and for years that was enough, and it worked until the sport evolved past it. No doubt Dana White would have continued booking her for fights, but she must have known that she couldn't compete with the new generation of female fighters in the sport. And the environment around her made everything worse. Her team kept telling her she was the best striker in the world, feeding the illusion that her skills were complete. The UFC and the media built her up as something superhuman, and she believed it. Early competition had been shallow, and by the time the division caught up, she was too comfortable, too famous, and too protected to adapt. The people around her stopped challenging her, and she stopped challenging herself. Ronda Rousey changed MMA forever, but when the evolution she inspired came for her, she was no longer built to survive it.